All right, so Roma are ready to approach the first leg of the Europa League quarterfinal against Feyenoord, their adversary that they faced in the Conference League final last year. But this team is very different from the one that they faced in the final. Let's break it down. So Roma are ready to take on a Feyenoord side that have not lost in 2023, let alone since November. Of course, the World Cup break was in there. But nevertheless, this is a team that has really redimensioned itself. I think that there's been a lot of turnover, and in turn, what they're getting on the field as well as off the field, because you're establishing a culture after that, a new sense of purpose, new motivations after you switch teams and you lose such an important final is you have to have something to show for that. And this year, Feyenoord have really answered that question. They're the first in Eredivisie. They're 8 points ahead of Ajax. These are incredible stats for a team that I really thought would have been a little bit more hard down on its luck, especially after a summer where they sold many key players, at least 3. But Roma have 12 clean sheets in 2023, and they've been on a roll. They're the second most winning team in Serie A after Napoli, so they're making up incredible ground. Well, they're making up good ground because there's been a lot of draws in that time where Roma have stumbled, but just as well, they are doing pretty good. I think we would pretty much agree on that. But Feyenoord, 21 goals in their last 6 matches. That stat is strong yet somewhat misleading, and I'll be getting to that as we go along. But Roma's record in Holland is pretty good in the last decade. 2015, they beat Feyenoord in the Netherlands. A few years later, 2021, they beat Ajax. And last year, they beat Vitesse on the way to the Conference League final. Europa League top scorers, 21 in 8 games this Feyenoord, but 7 have come against Shakhtar Donetsk, where they really piled it on 7-0 in that match. So that's why I say that stat was a little bit misleading. And one of the players who's been such a revelation for them comes over from Mexico this past summer. And in fact, before he did that, he was leading that league in goals. And that's Santiago Gimenez, 5 goals in 229 minutes played in the Europa League, which is about a goal every 46 minutes. Prolific, to say the least, and has the best scoring rate of any player with more than 3 goals in the competition. Now, on the flip side of that, Roma, as we speak about these clean sheets, have 3 clean sheets in their last 3 in Europe. So they've been really, really thrifty when it comes to leaking anything. And I don't want to say that this competition that Roma has faced in the Europa League has been top tier. I think we've gotten pretty lucky so far with the matchups. But just as well, this is a Roma which looks so organized no matter which players we have in the defense, whether it's 4 at the back, 3 at the back, whether it's Smalling, whether he's in or out. Llorente steps in, Smalling, Mancini, and Ibanez, right? So there's been a heavy rotation, and Roma has had to answer that, and they have done that dutifully with being so thrifty, to use that word again. What's another word for thrifty? I guess I'll come back to that. It'll come to me. Fabio Capello spoke ahead of this one. He says, Roma can win the Europa League if they set their mind to it because they are a humble team. Anytime Capello speaks, you kind of want to have his opinion because this is a guy who's won it all and he's been around Italian football longer than most of us have been alive. And he says they're attentive and careful when it comes to every small detail. And then in front of you is Dybala, an extraordinary footballer. He has technique, ideas. He's not afraid to take players one-on-one and risk going forward and has a great ability to get a shot off from anywhere on the pitch. Every time he shoots towards the opponent's goal, you already know that he didn't just do it to do it. It will surely be a danger for the opposing team. And he says, we know Mourinho. In his career, he's always paid attention to the defensive phases and confirms it again this season. Once he takes the lead, it will be very hard for anyone to take it away from him. Now, let's look a little bit about Arne Slot. This is a manager I very much respect. I'm going to put a link down here in the info section on this YouTube. And you could see his interview is about 4 minutes long. He has a couple interesting quotes here that I selected. He says, we are younger, but we still play attacking, energetic football. And he goes on to speak and discuss Dybala, Wijnaldum, of course, ex-Feyenoord player, and somebody who still loves that club, Nemanja Matic, and Belotti, and then says, the sentiment of revenge might be there for some, but not the majority. I think this is something which, a subplot, which is maybe trying to be pushed forward by the media, like, oh, Feyenoord, it's easy to say it, right? Like, Feyenoord's out there for revenge from last year's Conference League final. But he said that's really not the case. He says not the majority don't feel like that. And of course that's because there's been a big turnover. I also think that this is a young, motivated squad who seems to be very well organized. I don't mean that on the pitch. I mean that more mentally. Like they've really bought into Slot. Slot is somebody who played his entire professional career in the Netherlands, as well as his coaching career has been entirely there. And he's very much a product in the way that if you think of Dutch football, you think all-out attack, right? And he exemplifies that. But looking at who has left this Feyenoord compared to last season, Sinistera, who was their most dangerous player, the Colombian winger forward, gets sold to Leeds for $25 million. And then Malacia goes to Manchester United for $15 million, the wing back. And then Marco Senesi, $15 million to Bournemouth. So right there, you're talking 30 plus 25. You got 55 million euros of players sold. They brought a bunch of guys in, but their balance sheet at the end of that is plus 35 million. Marco Senesi, right? Like there was so much speculation about that player. He goes to Bournemouth. Don't really hear about him anymore. Yet if he was signed by any Serie A team, I think that would have been a purchase and a transfer that a lot of journalists had their eyes on. Yet in England, not really getting the attention. And I think that's just because of the slew of talent that is in England at this time. But 15 million, not cheap. But when it comes to these EPL teams, they could spend like no other league in the world with those media rights deals they get. Let's talk about values, though, and I'm using this off of transfermarket.com, which is pretty reliable. Orkan Kokcu, who is the Turkish 22-year-old captain defensive midfielder, he's worth around 30 million euros. I think this is probably the player you have to watch most, not for goal-scoring efforts, something like that. He's a defensive mid, but so much of the game goes through him. He will be the engine as well as the brain of Slot's side. So that's Kokcu, and behind him, we've got David Hancko, 25-year-old Slovakian center back. He's worth about 20 million. And then we've got Lucharel Geertruida from Curaçao, and also has Dutch citizenship, Curaçao being a former colony of the Netherlands. 22-year-old right back. So it's like just as Malacia gets sold to Manchester United, this is a team who has players through the pipeline, through the Dutch and Rotterdam's scouting network, and they can really replace players. It seems like very few other clubs can because of these networks and the just deep talent pool that the Netherlands possesses. But what about Santiago Gimenez? This player comes over from Mexico in the summer. He was Mexico's leading goal scorer in the league. 6 foot tall, left-footed, is a scrappy type of striker, will fight like heck for any ball that's in the box around the keeper within 10 yards from goal. He's very strong in the air. You cannot really out-jump this guy. 21 years old, not even a regular starter, and leads Feyenoord in goals. That's 10 in the league and 5 in the Europa League. So, I mean, this is, to me, definitely my guy to watch. Santiago Gimenez. It's a player that Mexico really should have started to build around, especially in the last World Cup. I was just watching an ESPN bit about that. They're like, why did he, not emphasize his strengths and really start to build something long-term around Gimenez? But to me, this is a player who transfer market rated like 5th or 6th most valuable on this team. I don't think that at all. I think this is a plus 35 million euro player right now, this 21-year-old center forward. So really keep your eyes on the strong, dynamic, scrappy Gimenez and watch out for that left foot. Another player who gets the majority of starting time is actually Danilo. He's brought over from Ajax this past summer for just 4 million euros, but he's tied for the second most goals on the team with 12. 24-year-old Brazilian forward. He's a little bit shorter, 1.74 meters, so maybe that's like 5'8", smaller type of guy. Signed by Ajax as a teen, went on Twente on loan last year, and was signed this summer. Yeah, just 4 million euros. That's looking like some really good business by them. But let's talk about Slot right now, a little deep dive on him. Last year, Robin van Persie is his assistant. They get to the Conference League final, of course, but they also finished third. That could be expected, right? You figure Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord. Those are like your top three. Yeah, Alkmaar, they get in there. But that's pretty much what you expect. But right now, 67 points, leading first place by 8. 4-2-3-1 formation. They average a lot of possession. But with that possession, I think the caveat, the strange thing, the irony, is that they like to send the ball forward quickly. So not only are they holding the lion's share, 85% of possession in the league, but they're making goal-scoring actions so quickly. And that comes into conflict, right? Because you think teams that hold a lot of possession, they play horizontal. But this is not the case. The thing is that once they do lose possession, they go into a really big, strong, fast counter press. They look to get the ball back immediately. The fullbacks like to get up high, and what happens there with the center backs is they spread out. The keeper comes in as like a third ball playing center back. It's really attacking all out, and they play with a lot of guts, this team. The midfield double pivot, like Kokcu, the 22-year-old captain of this team. He's one of those double pivots. He looks to find himself some space, receive the ball, play it up as quick as he can. Watch those transitions. He's going to receive it on his left, open up his hips, look, scan, and play that ball deep real quick. When we look at Feyenoord 2, second highest number of progressive passes per 90 in the Eredivisie this season, with almost 80 progressive passes per 90. That's an insane amount. And that's exceeded only by Ajax. And of course, this is a stat which really comes about and tells you a little bit about the Eredivisie, which of course is so attacking. And the defenses are not going to be like ones that you would see in Italy, for instance. A bit more organized, a bit less eager to move everybody forward. And if you want to call it pragmatic, but I guess that's in the eye of the beholder there. So build from the back, counter press quickly once the ball is lost, and make as many scoring opportunities as you can. And watch out for Gimenez. Don't let that ball go in the air. You don't want a contested ball between Llorente, Mancini, or Smalling during this match. Definitely not. Let's look at that starting lineup. They're not going to have their main keeper starting, most likely. That is a bit of a blow. That's Bijlow, Bijlow, Bijlow probably. And what he does is when Feyenoord cannot build out of the back, he sends that ball deep and to his left. And then they rely on the center forwards to regain possession with their back to goal and then initiate from a higher point rather than building it out. So they'll lose that skill set with Wellenreuther, who should be between the sticks, and then Geertruida, Trauner, Hancko, and Hartman make up the back four. And you've got Wieffer, Szymanski, and then Kokcu. So you've got your three there, and Paixao, Gimenez, and Idrissi, who remains with the team. Roma's possible starting lineup: Rui Patricio, Mancini, Smalling, Llorente. So this is what the bookmakers feel as far as probable starting lineup. Very much what we saw against Torino in that win. Zalewski, Cristante, Wijnaldum, Spinazzola. Wijnaldum against his former team with Pellegrini, Dybala, and Abraham. A bit different. You know who's missing. It's Solbakken, who goes out, unfortunately, with a shoulder injury. And it looks like his time is up for this season, which is a real stinker, if you want to call it that. As you know, he was definitely going to keep getting more minutes. He's got his goal, and always looking positive, and that's so unfortunate for our guy. But let me know what you think. Write in some comments, throw a like up there. You know what to do. Send it to your Romanisti friends. We'll definitely be on. We'll do something together. Right after this match. This is on Thursday. I'm going to get you the time right now as we're looking in live time. Oh, this is tomorrow. I'm sorry. What day is today? Today is, oh gosh, it's already Wednesday. I'll explain why I don't know what day of the week in the further episode. I'll be doing a special episode this week. Tell you a little bit about what's going on in my life. Had a major life event going on. All good things. But that's going to be at 12:45 for me, so 6:45 Italian time. So, wow, it's happening. And by the way, I saw Dybala and Abraham, a couple other players, stopping to sign autographs before they got on the plane to the Netherlands. That was pretty cool on the way to Rotterdam. Let's go. Forza Roma. Ciao.